Okay. Ready? Okay, so we are talking about the fluid. After filtration, the fluid enters into the nephron, right? And then inside the nephron, tubular reabsorption, while the fluid passes through the nephron, tubular reabsorption and tubular secretion occurs, right? Those two things occur. So, three processes of urine formation. What are those three processes? Glomerular filtration, tubular reabsorption, and tubular secretion. Good. So, after filtration, the fluid first enters into the proximal convoluted tubule, and when the fluid passes through the proximal convoluted tubule, 65% of everything is reabsorbed, right? Taken back into the body. Then the fluid enters into the loop of Henle through the descending limb of loop of Henle, while the fluid runs down, water is reabsorbed. We have talked about that, right? Selectively, the wall of descending limb will only allow the water to pass through. Okay? So only water will be reabsorbed. So when the fluid is going down, the concentration of fluid increases. Makes sense? Because only water is getting out. Other things are staying inside. So the concentration will go down. And when the fluid will reach at the bottom of the loop of Henle in normal kidneys, the concentration increases to 1200 milliosmol. Milliosmol is the unit of milliosmol. Okay, osmolarity. Then the fluid starts to go up through the ascending limb of loop of Henle, and when the fluid runs up, sodium, chloride, and potassium. Did I mention that in last?
Yes.
Okay. Sodium, potassium, and chloride. Those chemicals will be reabsorbed. No water. So that means water is staying inside, but some chemicals are being reabsorbed. So the concentration is going down. And when it will reach to the distal convoluted tubule, the concentration will go down to 100 milliosmol. So significantly low. Now, okay, so if I draw the nephron here, proximal convoluted tubule, loop of Henle, okay, then distal convoluted tubule, and the collecting duct here, okay. Now, the fluid is here inside the nephron, and in case of juxtamedullary nephrons, long loop, right?
Yes.
Juxtamedullary nephrons have long loop of Henle. And along the long loop of Henle of juxtamedullary nephrons, the capillary structure, which capillary structure looks like a ladder? Vasa recta. Very good. So, vasa recta is just along the long loop of Henle of juxtamedullary nephron. Okay, and vasa recta like this. So, this green one is vasa recta, okay, and this is the long loop of Henle of juxtamedullary. Okay. Now, you see what happens. You know that while the fluid is running down through the loop of Henle, descending limb, which chemical is getting out?
Water.
Water, very good. And water will enter into the blood here.
Okay.
Because this is a capillary, right? Vasa recta is a capillary. So water will get out from the descending limb and will enter, because the capillary is just beside it, so it will enter into the capillary. Make sense? Okay, so water is entering into the capillary blood. And from the ascending limb, sodium, potassium and chloride. Those chemicals enter into the blood here. Okay. Because they are getting out and getting in the blood. Now, just think that which way the fluid is running inside the loop of Henle.
From proximal to distal.
Yes.
Yes.
In this limb, the fluid is going downwards. In this limb, the fluid is going upwards. In this limb, as the fluid is going, the concentration is going up. And in this limb, as the fluid is moving, the concentration is going down. Everything is opposite, right? The direction is opposite, the concentration, change of concentration is in opposite direction, okay? That is one thing. While the water is getting in, okay? Getting in, and the blood is running this way. Blood is running this way, okay? So while the water is getting in, the concentration of blood is going up or down?
Down.
Down, very good.
Water.
Concentration is going down, right?
Water's making it.
See here, the concentration is going down, concentration is going up.
Down.
Direction is also opposite. The blood is going this way, the fluid is going that way. Here, opposite. Sodium, potassium, chloride is going in and concentration is going up, right? And concentration is going down. So you see, everything is opposite. Okay, that's why this whole mechanism is called the counter-current mechanism of urine formation. Okay, the counter-current mechanism of formation of urine that happens between the loop of Henle and the vasa recta. So just know that much.
Everything's opposite.
Yeah. Now when we'll go home, just start to think what happens. Okay. Okay. Now we'll talk about the urinary bladder. Urinary bladder is a hollow muscular organ. That means it has a cavity inside, located in the pelvic cavity, in the pelvic part here. And if you see the wall of the urinary bladder, it has 3 layers. The innermost lining of the bladder is formed by transitional epithelial tissue or transitional epithelium. That's the innermost lining. Then the middle layer, which is the thickest one, is formed by smooth muscle. This smooth muscle is specialized smooth muscle. That means different than other smooth muscles of the body. But it is a smooth muscle. And it has a name, the smooth muscle layer of the wall of the urinary bladder, that is called detrusor muscle. It is a smooth muscle, but it has its own name. What is that? Detrusor muscle. Okay. Then the outermost layer is the connective tissue layer, which is called fibrous adventitia. Okay. So those are the 3 layers in the wall of the bladder. Now, if I ask you, tell me the function of the bladder. What's the function of the bladder? It stores the urine for few to several hours, right? And the transitional epithelial lining is very helpful because of two reasons. For two reasons. One is, you know, probably in NP1 you have learned that transitional epithelial tissue can take a lot of what?
Stretch.
Stretch. Can take a lot of stretch. And your bladder changes the shape, right? It's smaller, bigger, so the transitional lining can take a lot of stretch when the bladder is full, expanded. That is one important one reason why transitional is there. If other type of epithelial tissue are there, then it will get, you know, tear or detached. So that is one. Another very important function transitional performs here, that through the transitional epithelium, no fluid can pass. So since the urinary bladder has transitional lining, the urine cannot get back into the body. Make sense? So urine will stay for several hours without any absorption. So that is another important thing about transitional, that fluid is inside, right? Urine is inside. Transitional will not let the fluid to pass through.
Reabsorption.
So it will not go back into the body.
Wait.
It will stay there.
That's, okay, but I'm mixing words here. Will it allow things to be filtrated, will it allow things to come in? But won't allow, so it's a complete barrier?
Completely, yeah.
Complete barrier, okay.
Yeah, complete barrier. So that is very good. Otherwise, you know, urine stays for several hours, right? If the urine could have passed through the transitional, that it will go into your body back. We don't want that, right? Once it is out, that means it should get out from the body. So those are two important properties of transitional epithelium. Both help here in the urinary bladder. Okay. Now, if you see inside the bladder, yeah, most part of the bladder has folds. Like inside the stomach, you have seen inside the stomach there are many folds or foldings. Similar things are present inside the urinary bladder, and name is also same. These are called rugae. The folds in the urinary bladder. Okay. So rugae are also present inside the stomach. Do you remember that rugae are also present inside the stomach? Same kind of foldings. So these are rugae of the bladder. Now, the lower end of the bladder, if you see inside the lower end of the bladder, that part is smooth. The surface is smooth, no folding, no folds, very shiny. If you cut the bladder and see without microscope, you will see that shiny part, smooth and shiny. So this is one half of the bladder, since it is dissected. So this is that part, smooth and shiny part, and there is another half from this side. So actually, that area is like a funnel. Make sense? Like a funnel, and inside is very smooth and shiny. That part is called the trigon. So trigon is a funnel-shaped lower part of the bladder. The inside surface is smooth and shiny. Okay? So that funnel actually works as a real funnel. What is that? The funnel pours the urine, direct the urine into the urethra. Okay? You know that funnel has a lower end of the funnel has a tube-like thing, and that will pour the urine or direct the urine into the urethra. Okay. Now, three openings are present in the bladder. What are those three openings? Two openings for the ureters. We know that two ureters bring the urine into the bladder, right? So those two ureters enter into the bladder, So you will see two openings for two ureters and another opening that is for the urethra, because we know that urethra starts from the bladder. So this is the opening for the urethra. These are the openings for the ureters. Okay?
What do they call?
They come from the kidney. And
Yeah, but what are they called? Is there a name for
no,
it?
no, just opening for the ureters.
And there's three of them.
Ureter orifices. Orifices are open. Okay. Okay, so three openings you will see inside the bladder. Okay, good. Now, the urethra, the last part of the urinary system, or last structure of the urinary system is the urethra. And this part is different in male and female. Male urethra is much longer than female urethra, and usually the length of male urethra is between 15 to 20 centimeters. If you see the urethra, there are two sphincters present in the urethra. Two sphincters are present in the urethra. One is called internal urethral sphincter and another is external urethral sphincter. So internal sphincter and external urethral sphincter. Now, the external urethral sphincter you can control. You can control the external one. You have no control on the internal sphincter. Now, if I ask you which one should be skeletal muscle and which one should be smooth muscle?
External skeletal and internal
Makes sense?
smooth.
Because skeletal muscles, we have skeletal muscles are voluntary, right? Voluntary muscles. And the smooth muscles are involuntary. So the external one is formed by skeletal muscle and internal one is formed by smooth muscle. Okay? That's why one we can control, the other one we cannot. Now when we urinate, what happens? First, we voluntarily relax the external sphincter because we can do that, right?
Yes.
So we voluntarily relax. Then what happens when we relax the external one? A signal, a nerve carries that signal to the spinal cord. And then the spinal cord will send the signal to the internal sphincter. Okay? And we relax the internal sphincter. So first what we do, we relax the, which one? External one, voluntarily. Then the signal, when we relax that, from the sphincter, a signal goes to the spinal cord. And then the spinal cord will send signal to the internal and will tell that you get relaxed. Okay? So now both are relaxed, right? So the urine will get out from the body. So that's the urinary reflex or mechanism of urination. Lining, epithelial lining of the urethra is important because urethra has three different epithelial linings. The very first part is lined by transitional epithelia. The small first part, very first part is lined with transitional. Why? because bladder is transitional, right? And the first part, just little bit transitional epithelium enters into the urethra. That's why the very first small part is lined by transitional epithelium. Then most part of the urethra is lined by pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium. Most part. And very end part is lined with transitional epithelium. Very end part is lined with stratified squamous. So I'm repeating again. The very first small part is lined with transitional because it is attached to the bladder, right? So from the bladder, little bit lining will get in. Now most part is lined with pseudostratified ciliated, and very last part, small part, is lined with stratified squamous. Does it make sense? Stratified squamous.
Yes.
Because you know that the friction and very end part get exposed to the air more, right? So chances getting exposed to the air is more. That's why the very end part is lined with stratified squamous. Okay. First part also makes sense because from the bladder, the lining will continue a little bit inside the urethra. Yes.
Is the most part pseudostratified columnar or ciliated?
All column pseudostratified are ciliated.
Okay.
Why, what's the purpose of having the cilia? Why have,
Why?
yeah.
Because after urination, little bit urine can stay there and the cilia will clear up. Or any mucus, the secretion of mucus always occurs and glandular secretion occurs, right? So the cilia will clean it up.
Push.
Yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, infection, the chance of infection will be there.
Stratified ciliated columnar.
The female urethra, that just know the length, is 3 to 4 centimeter. And male urethra has 3 parts: prostatic part, membranous part, and spongy part. So male urethra has 3 parts, and first part is the prostatic urethra, which is 2.5 centimeter long and located inside the prostate. Second part is the shortest part, about 2 centimeter long, and that part is the part that passes through the urogenital diaphragm. It is a flat muscle, urogenital diaphragm. And that's the shortest part. And then longest part is the last part, that is about 15 centimeter long, that is called spongy urethra. Also, it has another name called penile urethra. This part is located inside the penis. So, those are the 3 parts of the urethra. Here in this picture, you can see those 3 parts. This is the prostate. So inside the prostate, this is the prostatic urethra, and then this is the urogenital diaphragm. It's a flat muscle, and the part passes through the diaphragm, that is called the membranous urethra. The membranous part, 2 centimeter, and then the longest part, the last part inside the penis, that's the spongy or penile urethra.
Professor,
Yes.
the urogenital diaphragm, is that a skeletal muscle
Skeletal
like the diaphragm?
It is a skeletal muscle. Yes. That supports the urethra. Okay. So now we'll talk about the body fluid. Before I talk about body fluid, let me talk about few clinical conditions related to the urine formation. One clinical condition that is called anuria. Okay. Anuria, A indicates what?
No urine.
No. Okay. So anuria, no urine. Okay. No production of urine. But actually, if the production of urine is extremely low, we also consider that as anuria. But that volume should be, if the volume is less than 50 milliliter, okay, that is considered as anuria. And another condition that is called oliguria. Decreased production of urine. If the production of urine is less than normal, then that is oliguria.
Less than normal, but more than 50?
Yes, exactly. Less than normal, more than 50. So if the volume is, let me see the exact volume. If the volume is I think less than 3 to 500 milliliter. Let me make sure. Oops. 3 to 500.
How much?
Okay. If it is less than 3 to 500 milliliter, that is oliguria. Okay? 3 to 500 milliliter. So if it is less than 300 to 500, not 3 to 500, 300 to 500 milliliter. Okay? So that is oliguria. So if less than 50, that is anuria. But if it is more than 50 but less than 500, we usually consider that as oliguria. Okay? In some cases, we say 3 to 500 because if the size of the person is small, then the amount will be less. So we are not very strict to see that the size of the person is big, the blood volume is more, then the filtration will be more. Okay, so that is oliguria. Another is pyuria. What is that? If you see the presence of pus tissue in the urine, that is pyuria. Okay. Another condition that is called hematuria. What is that? Blood. If you see blood, the presence of blood in the urine, that is hematuria. There are two types of hematuria. One is if you take the urine in the test tube, you can see the blood, red color. The urine gets red. That is called gross hematuria. Gross, G-R-O-S-S, gross. And if you don't see any color change, but if you see the urine under the microscope, you may see the red blood cells presence, right? That is called microscopic hematuria. Okay. Another condition that is called polyuria. Poly means many, frequent. So if the production of urine is more, and the person urinates more frequently in both conditions, we say polyuria. The amount is more and frequency of urination is more. In general, we say polyuria. But the process of production of excessive urine is called what? Diuresis, right? You know that diuresis is the production of excessive urine. The process is called diuresis. But polyuria is more, general. Like if production is more and the person is going more, we usually say, we don't say diuresis, we say polyuria. Okay. So just remember those few conditions. Okay, now we'll talk about the body fluid. Body fluid is very much related to the urinary system. So first we'll talk about the amount of body fluid in human body, the volume or amount of body fluid. Then we'll talk about the compartments of body fluid. Then we'll talk about the sub-compartments of body fluid compartments, and then we'll talk about the distribution of electrolytes inside and outside of the cells, intercellular and extracellular electrolytes, and then we'll talk about the water balance and body buffers. You know that buffers control the pH. So what are the buffers we have in our body? First, the body water content. In infants, 73% or more body mass is water. Because in infants, they have less fat and low bone mass. So that, and in adult males, around 60% of body mass is water. And in adult female, the volume of water is less, around 50%. Okay, because female has more fat, and fat contains less water. Remember, the muscle, skeletal muscle contains more water than the fat. Since female body has more fat, less skeletal muscle, the water amount is less. Okay, and since the infants have less fat, they have more water. Okay, so as we get old, you know that our body shrinks, the size gets smaller a little bit, right? Because of the shrinkage of the skeletal muscles. All muscles get shrunk. So the volume of water also goes down. And in old age, average volume of water in the body is around 45%. Now, fluid compartments. The total 40 liters of water is present in adult male, and we can divide the body water, the location of body water in two compartments: extracellular fluid compartment and intercellular fluid compartment. So the water is located in those two compartments, extracellular compartment and intercellular compartment. Intercellular fluid compartment is not a single compartment. Just think that we have billions of cells, right? And if you take all those cells and add them together, that is the intercellular fluid compartment. So actually, virtually, it's not a single compartment. All cells together we say that that is the intercellular compartment. So if you add all intercellular fluids, that means the fluid from all cells together, that's the intercellular fluid compartment. And we know that in our body, in the tissue, in between the cells, we have what? Spaces, right?
Right.
And the fluid is also present there. So fluid is present inside the cell as well as outside of the cell. If you add all inside cell fluid, that is the intercellular compartment. And if you add all outside, that's the extracellular fluid compartment. Okay? So there is not a partition is there that will separate extra and intra. The partition is the cell membrane. Okay? And now, extracellular fluid compartment contains 1/3 of our body water, and 2/3 of our body water is located in intercellular, that means inside the cells. So inside the cells we have more water than outside of the cells. Out of 40 liter, 25 liter, that's 2/3 of water is present inside the cells. And now extracellular fluid compartment can be divided into sub-compartments. What are those? Plasma. Plasma is present in the blood, right? Located inside the cardiovascular system. So that is one compartment where the water is there. 3 liter of water is present in the plasma. Interstitial fluid. The fluid in between the cells. That's the interstitial fluid. Okay. 12 liter. That's the largest subcompartment. 12 liter of water is present there. And then other subcompartments where the extracellular fluids are found. Lymph, right? You know, lymphatic circulation, lymphatic system has the lymph fluid. Cerebrospinal fluid around your brain and the spinal cord. Humors of the eye. You have aqueous and vitreous humor inside your eyeball. Synovial fluid present in the synovial joints, right? In the synovial joints we have synovial cavities, and inside the cavity we have the fluid, synovial fluid. Serous fluid. What are the serous fluid?
The outer layer. No?
Around the heart you have what? Pericardium, right?
Right.
You have pericardial cavity,
And, yes.
and the pericardial fluid is there, right? Around your lung you have what? Pleura, and you have pleural cavity. Fluid is there. The lubricating fluid, slippery fluid, right? So those are the serous fluid. Those are the serous fluid. So serous fluid is located where? In the pericardial cavity, pleural cavity, as well as in the peritoneal cavity. You have peritoneal cavity, you know that, right? Already you have learned that. So in those cavities, just write it down. Pericardial cavity, pleural cavity, and peritoneal cavity, right? In those cavities, those are called serous cavities, and you have the fluid there. That fluid is the serous fluid.
Can you repeat those? Pericardial.
Pleural, and peritoneal, right? You have fluid everywhere. That is also extracellular fluid. So in this slide, you can see they have shown the compartments. The total body water is 40 liter, and then we can first divide into 2 compartments. Intercellular fluid compartment, 25 liter, and extracellular fluid compartment, 15 liter. Okay. Then extracellular fluid compartment has sub-compartments. We have talked about those. Okay. The largest subcompartment is the interstitial fluid compartment. Out of 15 liter, 12 liter is present there. Others are synovial fluid, the aqueous and vitreous humor, and you have serous fluid, right? You have, what else you have? Lymph, yeah, blood, plasma, right? So those are the subcompartments. Okay. Composition of body fluid. Body fluid is mainly water, but other chemicals are present. What are the other chemicals? Some chemicals are electrolytes, some chemicals are non-electrolytes. The difference between electrolytes and non-electrolytes is what? Electrolytes have what? Electrical charge. So this is electrolyte, right? Now if I only show you this is not an electrolyte, okay? The chemical that carries electrical positive or negative charges, those are the electrolytes. So some chemicals are electrolytes, some are non-electrolytes, those are the solids. Non-electrolytes are mostly organic chemicals, and glucose, lipids, creatine, and urea. Those chemicals do not carry electrical charge. Electrolytes dissociate into ions in water, and what are the electrolytes? Body electrolytes, inorganic salts, all acids and bases, and some proteins. So those are the common electrolytes. Now we'll see the amount of some electrolytes, some important electrolytes in our intercellular and extracellular fluid. So intercellular and extracellular is interstitial fluid. So we'll compare those two. Don't look the blood electrolytes. Okay, so we'll just compare the intercellular fluid electrolytes with interstitial. Interstitial is the main extracellular. So this is intercellular and this is interstitial. So we'll compare the amount of electrolytes inside the cell and outside of the cell. Make sense? Outside of the cell is the interstitial. So just remember a couple of those I will mention here. Sodium is very important. Always remember that sodium is concentration is much higher in the outside of the cell, and inside the cell the sodium is very low. So if you compare the blue and yellow, forget about the red one. So blue and yellow. So blue is the outside of the cell, interstitial. So you see the concentration is very high compared to inside the cell, intercellular fluid. So remember that sodium concentration is always much higher the outside of the cell. Potassium is just opposite. So potassium concentration is very high inside the cell, and outside of the cell the potassium is very low. And that's why you remember when depolarization, I talked about depolarization, when depolarization occurs, what happens? The ion channels get open and sodium goes in. That moves the resting membrane potential towards positive, right? Why? Because always outside of the cell, the concentration of sodium is high. That's why sodium is okay. Another thing you need to know here is protein. So the protein is concentration is high inside the cell and low outside of the cell. Yeah, protein is higher inside the cell and lower the outside of the cell. Why? Protein is synthesized, produced inside the cell. You know that the rough surface endoplasmic reticulum.
Right.
is the manufacturer of protein, right? Where the protein is produced, synthesized, the ribosomes. So that's why if I ask you where you'll get more stuffs in the factory, right? If you go to the factory, you will get more. So factories are inside the cell where the proteins are produced. So that's why the protein concentration is higher inside the cell than outside. Water balance. The amount of water we intake, the same amount of water we excrete out from the body. So the water intake is equal to the water output, which is 2.5 liter per day. So you supposed to produce 2.5 liter of release 2.5 liter of water, and most of the water gets out from the body as urine. That's the main way. We take water as beverages, food, and metabolic water. What is that metabolic water? When metabolism occurs, few things are produced. Metabolism produces few things. What are those? Can you name one? ATP. That's the most important thing. Metabolism produces ATP. Metabolism produces carbon dioxide. That's why we are exhaling the carbon dioxide, using the oxygen and producing carbon dioxide. Metabolism produces heat, and metabolism produces water. Okay, so those are the things produced by metabolism. And since metabolism is a continuous process in our body is continuously producing small amount of water. Okay? Water output, how we excrete the water out of the body. Urine is the main way we excrete the water out from the body. Insensible water loss. When we talk, when we breathe, we lose water, insensible water loss. Through your skin, continuously, small amount of evaporation is being taken place. So by evaporation, we lose water through the skin. That's non-sensible. But if I ask you sweating, when sweating occurs, is that sensible or non-sensible? Sweating is sensible, right? Because we can feel that, we can see that. But through your skin, even when you are not sweating, continuously small amount of water is getting out by evaporation. That is insensible, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, perspiration and pieces. So those are the ways we lose water from the body. Now, regulation of water intake. So in our hypothalamus, you remember probably in LP1 I mentioned that hypothalamus controls the food and water intake. Anybody remember food and water intake is controlled by hypothalamus. How much food you will eat, how much water you will take, right? So hypothalamus has a center that is called the thirst center. Okay? And that thirst center will be stimulated by the osmolarity, the change of osmolarity of your blood. And the hypothalamic thirst center has the receptors. Those are called osmoreceptors. So those osmoreceptors will be able to detect the change of osmolarity of your blood or body fluid. And those osmoreceptors will be stimulated by increased plasma osmolarity. If the osmolarity increases 2 to 3%, then those osmoreceptors will be stimulated. Okay? And another factor that will stimulate the thirst center, that's the angiotensin 2. You remember in last lecture I have talked about angiotensin 2. The renin will convert the angiotensin to angiotensin 1, then the angiotensin ACE, angiotensin converting enzyme will convert the angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. That angiotensin 2 can stimulate the thirst center in the hypothalamus. Another factor that will stimulate, send the neural signal to the hypothalamus if your mouth gets dry. The dry from when the mouth gets dry, the nerve will carry that signal to the hypothalamus and will stimulate the hypothalamus. And when the hypothalamus will be stimulated, another factor is decreased blood volume or blood pressure. If your blood volume goes down, that will also stimulate the hypothalamus. So those, just know that those are the factors that will stimulate the hypothalamus. And when the hypothalamus will be stimulated, then what will happen? You will feel thirsty and you will drink water. Okay? So that's how the hypothalamic thirst center is activated or is stimulated. Just remember those factors. One is osmolarity is very much related to the concentration in when I showed you the change of osmolarity, right? I told you that from 300 it will increase, that's the osmolarity, and will go down to 100. So the osmolarity is very related to the concentration. So if the concentration of blood increases, then you should drink more or less. Just think this way. If the concentration of blood increases, that means the water is less there, right?
Yes.
So you have to drink. So that will stimulate your hypothalamus, because when hypothalamus will be stimulated, you will drink, will fail to drink. Okay, so think that way. That osmolarity increase will stimulate the thirst center. If you drink too much water, then your osmolarity of your blood will go down. The concentration will go down, right? That should not stimulate your hypothalamus. You should not feel thirsty if your blood has a lot of water in it, right? Okay, so think that way. That is one. Angiotensin 2. What's the function of angiotensin 2? Increase the
Blood pressure.
blood volume and then blood pressure, right? We have talked about that. So this is another way angiotensin 2 will increase your blood volume and blood pressure. Because when you drink more, the volume will increase a little bit. Okay? Dry mouth. When your mouth will get dry, you feel you should drink. And another is low blood volume and blood pressure. That will directly stimulate hypothalamus. Okay. And if you drink too much, then that will inhibit the hypothalamus. Then you won't feel drinking anymore, right? And that's why hypothalamus controls the drinking. When you are thirsty, you start to drink, right? Mm-hmm. Then gradually, when you drink and drink more and more, then your, interest or your desire to drink is no more, because your hypothalamus is saturated. It's saying, no, I don't need any more.
Is it true that you can drown your system, causing death? Too much water? Yes.
Can anybody answer her?
Yes, it's true. You
You
can.
can be sick.
No, you can
Because I've
actually
heard
drown
runners,
your
I've
body
heard
can
runners
die.
being sick.
True?
Oh, thanks.
True. I hear of it before.
Something like 16 gallons.
Yeah, it's a
You
extreme amount
can.
of water.
You can. People die from it. They go on a diet and they think, oh, need a lot of water because no calories in it.
Mm-hmm.
And,
You mean voluntary intake of water?
yeah,
Okay.
all day, drink lots and
Yeah.
it can kill you.
Yes. If you have high blood pressure, that could be dangerous. That person can die. If you drink too much, then blood pressure will go up, right? You have already high blood pressure.
Right.
then, then pressure, if the pressure increases, then it can collapse the cardiovascular system. So that is one way I can think, that if someone has already problem in the system, then if you overload, create more pressure on that system will collapse. But usually normal person should produce more urine. When you are drinking more, you should produce more. If all systems are working fine, in that case, your urinary output will be more. Okay?
Right.
So circulatory overload will not occur.
Okay.
But always, when you are drinking too much, the load on your circulatory system is increasing. But since we are producing urine, that is the homeostasis we have in our body. Yes, but you are right in a way. If the person has some system failure, close to failure, then if you drink too much and overload that system, then of course that will collapse the system.
Yes.
I was watching 1,000 Ways to Die,
Yes.
and I saw a person.
I hope you don't want to die.
No, but I saw a lady who was running, and she had a lot of bottles of water, and she kept on drinking, and then she collapsed.
Collapse.
And
She may
there
have.
was something like she flushed her electrolytes or something.
I've heard that you can drown your system out by drinking too much water.
She kept on drinking, and she was running, drinking, and then pouring some water on her head, and then she collapsed entirely.
Yeah, if you do anything, if you do, yes.
Wouldn't you be more apt to die just from your electrolytes getting thrown off, and then you get arrhythmia, and then you get a heart attack?
Yeah, that is another way you can explain that when the osmolarity changes, although the amount of electrolytes is same, but when you put too much water, the concentration of electrolytes, right, that changes. That is imbalance, of course. Yeah, so electrolyte imbalance can do that. Yeah. So in that case, your
Speaking of water.
is it great? Yeah.
I heard something I don't see.
So electrolyte imbalance, yes, that can happen.
But it would have to be very extreme. I mean, even for somebody whose system is impaired, it would have to be extreme.
Yeah, I think so. If like you have kidney problem, chronic kidney failure, the person doesn't know that he has kidney failure, right? Then if you drink too much, then your kidney is not producing, working as you are, overloading yourself. So in that case, your blood volume will increase more than normal person. And electrolyte imbalance or whatever you see, the blood pressure will increase. So that's why we see that can happen.
Yes.
Not unlikely.
Okay, thank you.
Professor, what causes kidney failure? What are some of the causes? I'm sure there's multiple, but what are some of the causes?
The one is, of course, any kind of infection, chronic infection.
Chronic? Okay.
Yeah, chronic infection can cause. In many cases, we see that due to excessive use of drugs or medicines, chemicals,
Okay.
some chemicals have,
Street drugs.
some chemicals can cause the destruction of kidney cells, nephros. Okay? That is the most common, I would say.
Trauma?
Yeah, drugs or
What
chemicals.
about a trauma? If you were to fall, I mean, because your kidneys are
Yeah, that's
are
any mechanical.
they're exposed. I mean,
In the back, just
Yeah.
attached to the wall, posterior wall. So yeah, of course the
I'm sure.
physical
right, yeah.
trauma or mechanical trauma is another factor.
Okay.
Okay, so those are the factors that will stimulate the hypothalamus. Here they have just shown that if the osmolarity increases, concentration of sodium increases in plasma, that will also increase the osmolarity, will stimulate the osmoreceptors in hypothalamus. Okay, and that will, you know that hypothalamus is very closely connected to the pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is just below the hypothalamus. This is hypothalamus, this is pituitary. And hypothalamus always controls the pituitary gland.
It's the boss.
Yes, that's the highest boss, right?
Yes.
Pituitary is the master gland, but master gland also has boss. That's the hypothalamus. So hypothalamus will send signal to the posterior pituitary. This is the posterior pituitary that will release the antidiuretic hormone or ADH, and will later into the blood. Blood will take that antidiuretic hormone to the kidney, and it will work on the last part, right, of
Yeah.
the nephron. And will do what? Antidiuretic hormone will reabsorb the water. So more water will get back into the body, and the osmolarity will go down. Make sense? The concentration of blood will go down. So that's how the antidiuretic hormone regulates the osmolarity or controls the osmolarity in the body. Imbalance of water in our body. Very commonly heard terms. We hear dehydration and edema a lot. Dehydration is loss of water in the extracellular fluid. When we lose water from the body, just think that if the room temperature increases and you stay there for a long time, then water will get out from the body, right?
Yes.
Sweating will occur, water will get out. Now you tell me, the water will get out, is it easy to water get out from inside the cell or from outside of the cell?
Outside.
That's common sense, right? Because from the outside of the cell, the water will first get out, not from inside, because we have the cell membrane, right? It is not easy for water to get out. So that's why in dehydration, we see the loss of water from the extracellular fluid compartment. Okay? Then if it is chronic, then intercellular fluid water will get out. But usually inside the cells always, remember, our body or our cells always try to keep the intercellular concentration constant. That is very important for the cell to function, right? Because inside the cell you have all different organelles. They must function normally. Outside of the cell we don't have the organelles, right? So it is very important that you keep the concentration of fluid in the cytoplasm constant. Okay? Not change the outside. So change of concentration outside is not as dangerous as if you change the concentration inside. And extracellular fluid usually we lose in dehydration. The causes of dehydration: hemorrhage, bleeding, severe burns, prolonged vomiting or diarrhea, profuse sweating, water deprivation, and diuretic abuse. If you take too much diuretics, that will produce more urine, and that can cause dehydration. Edema is atypical accumulation of interstitial fluid. Now, atypical, we say atypical accumulation because fluid must be present in the interstitial spaces, right?
Yes.
That is normal. Fluid should be present or accumulate in the interstitial fluid. Now, if that amount is not normal, more than normal, the volume, then that is called edema. So that's why we say atypical, not normal amount, but more than normal. Okay. Acid-base balance. So the normal pH of body fluid in arterial blood, the pH is 7.4, and in venous blood, the pH is 7.35, and also in the interstitial fluid, that means outside of the cell, 7.0. Intercellular fluid pH is 7.0, neutral. The term alkalosis and acidosis, if the pH goes below 7.35 in arterial blood, that will be considered as acidosis. pH low means acidic, right? So that means going towards acidic, that is acidosis. And if the pH goes above 7.45 in arterial blood, that is called alkalosis. Both are harmful for the body. So that's why in our body we have some buffers. Those are called body buffers. Buffers try to keep the pH constant. That's the function of the buffer. Okay, it tries to keep the pH constant. We have some buffers in our body. What are the buffer systems in our body? We have chemical buffer systems. Your brain stem, respiratory centers also work as buffers, and your kidneys also work to regulate the pH. You remember I said when I talked about the functions of the kidney, I said if hydrogen ion concentration changes, then what will you do? If in your body hydrogen ion concentration increases, then what should happen? Hydrogen ion should enter into the nephron, urine will get out from the body, right? So that's how kidney regulates the pH, okay? And try to keep the pH constant. So your body has some chemical buffers. Number one, your body has some chemical buffers. Your respiratory centers inside the brainstem, they also control the pH, so work as buffers, as well as your kidneys, they work as buffers. So just know that those are the buffer systems in our body. Okay. Now, what is an acid? How you define an acid? Anybody? What is an acid? You all know acid, but how you define the acid?
There's the scale, like 0 to 14?
Yes. If the pH is pH 7.0 is what?
Neutral.
Neutral. Okay. And if the pH is below 7.0, that is acidic. Okay. If below, that is acidic. Okay. And above 7.0, that is
Base.
Yeah.
Or
Or
alkaline?
alkaline or base. Or alkaline. You are right. That is the pH. But if I ask you what is an acid,